I just want to give some quick thoughts. The Rams and the Cardinals, they faced off on Monday Night Football a couple nights ago, and they beat the Cardinals on the road 30-23. So it's easy to overreact to NFL games because of how infrequent they are. NFL games take place just once every weekend, and you got about 16 or 17 of them per season. Obviously, it used to be 16, now it's 17. So it is easy to overanalyze and jump to the conclusion that a single game is a microcosm for that team's entire season. That's what we do. We say, oh, we kind of over embellish or we under embellish and say this loss means that they are going to lose the rest of the season. We heard people say that about the Packers when they lost the opening game of the season to the Saints. We heard the same thing about the Bills when they lost to the Steelers in week 1. We try to encapsulate one game and blow it out of proportion. And while I don't necessarily think that people were always doing that with the Rams, I do think that the confidence with the team had wavered to a great extent. I think that there were a lot of question marks in that building. There was a lot of cause for concern and skepticism surrounding whether or not they could kind of spin out of this funk. They had lost 3 straight games because prior to this win on Monday night, they struggled against the good teams, to put it bluntly. They were 1-4 against teams with an above 500 record. With an above 500 record. They were 6-0 against teams with a sub 500 record. Now, obviously, at the time that they played the San Francisco 49ers, they were a sub 500 team. Now they are an above 500 team. Same thing with the Colts. The last time they collected a marquee victory was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 3 of the season. They beat the Colts on the road in week 2 of the season. This is a much different Colts team than back then than they are right now. But what Monday night did was it restored confidence in the Rams. It restored the viability of this team and their chances to actually contend for a Super Bowl. That's what it restored. It restored that belief that maybe this team actually can accomplish something. Maybe this team actually can make some noise in the postseason if they were to get there. Because the reality was when they lost to the Cardinals, when they lost to all of these above 500 teams, the Titans, the Packers, their heart was tested. They were bludgeoned, absolutely bludgeoned by the Packers in that loss. I mean, they just couldn't hold a candlestick. Same thing with the 49ers. They were beat down, they were stomped on, and offensively they struggled. Finally, we saw Matthew Stafford in another game with bright lights. This time he delivered, which again hadn't always been the case. He delivered against the Colts, he delivered against the Bucs, but then we kind of saw him dissipate a little bit, and he finally snapped out of this 5 picks in 3 games, 3 consecutive games of pick sixes funk. And he actually delivered on Monday night. It was tremendous. 287 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He was accurate. He made sound decisions, no turnovers. That's what we need. That's what the Rams needed from him. And more importantly, they got production out of Odell Beckham Jr. Now he is starting to produce. He's starting to get more comfortable in the system. The rapport between him and Matthew Stafford is only strengthening every single game that they play together. And the difficulty with Odell Beckham Jr. was never about his talent. It was, okay, how would he replace Robert Woods given their stylistically different approaches and positions to football? Robert Woods did most of his damage up the seams in the slot. He wasn't a deep route runner. He was kind of a short crossing route runner with slants over the middle. That's what made him and Cooper Kupp such a dynamic duo. Odell Beckham Jr., he's a legit wideout. He's a deep route runner. He's a deep threat playmaker. And now he's kind of having to shift himself into operating a little bit more in the slot, operating a little bit more up the seams, shorter routes, which is not something that he's always been used to, and the familiarity between him and And Matthew Stafford hadn't always been there. It's starting to get there now. But perhaps most importantly, what's finally changed is the physicality level of the Rams. They are starting to play a lot more physically. They're starting to induce a lot more pain. They're meeting the opponents at the point of attack. Defensively, they were incredible on Monday night. They were wreaking havoc up front. They ended up turning over Kyler Murray twice on interceptions. They forced a fumble. They sacked him 4 times, 6 tackles for loss. Aaron, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. Aaron Donald was an absolute monster, pushing offensive linemen back into Kyler Murray. The hardest thing to do is to push another man against his own will. That's so difficult to do. And Aaron Donald had 3 sacks, was just all over the place, was absolutely just hellacious up front. And he was a problem, and that was great to see for the Rams because they needed that defensive performance, and they were able to run the football. And that physicality carried over into the run game that they were finally able to establish. Sony Michel was picking up hard-earned first downs, hard-earned carries and touches. That's what they needed. That's what they were lacking for the longest time. So this win was huge because obviously the Rams season was ebbing and flowing. And one week they look great. The next week they look kind of like barely a top 10 team. And it keeps them in the divisional hunt because now it gives them a shot at winning the division. They're only a game behind the Cardinals. And when you look at both of the schedules for both teams, Rams could easily win all 4 games. Cardinals might slip up. You never know. It gives them an outside shot at collecting the best overall record in the conference. But I think most importantly, it solidifies themselves as a 3rd or 4th best team in the NFC. I think that they and the Cowboys and Cardinals can kind of be clumped together. I think that they're right below right now. The Bucs and the Packers, I think, are the 2 best teams in the NFL as we speak. So I just think, and the Packers obviously shellacked them. They beat the Bucs. The Rams beat the Bucs, but the Packers look like the best team in the NFL still. But I think that both they and the Bucs are just on a slightly different level at the moment. But again, big win for the Rams. They obviously have another huge test in their season finale against the 49ers at home. That will be a game that we'll be paying attention to because Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan has kind of bested Sean McVay and the Rams a lot over the course of their times in the NFC West together. So, but for the most part, though, this win kind of returns them to a bit of relevancy, and that was important to see.